Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Bill passed along a fascinating story out of Australia and New Zealand, and you know I love my stories from down there. So Bill got this link he sent to me from abc.net.au, and Vanuatu's indigenous groups fight for recognition of bungee jumping's roots. And here's the thing, bungee jumping has been around for a while, and everyone knows what it is. But the question is, where did it all start? And I remember when I was younger, seeing, maybe National Geographic, but seeing the fact that there was some place where these people did this. They built a platform out in the jungle and tied vines and stuff to their feet and jumped off as a display of, look how brave I am. And of course, when European descendants got a hold of this idea, they thought, well, we'll put some kind of flexible, stretchy thing in there so it won't be such a jolt on the ankles, and turned it into bungee jumping. And I was not familiar with a lot of the history of bungee jumping from that point forward and how it became popularized. But here's the point. Vanuatu is the place where this apparently originated. Those are the people who invented it. And they're now saying, shouldn't we get some credit for that? So the question is, we can salute them, but do they get money? Because that's what some people are suggesting. Every year, as Vanuatu's wild monsoon season comes to an end, Chief Luke Fargo instructs the boys of his village to build a 30-meter tower using branches cut from a nearby forest. When the structure is finished, the boys prepare for the next stage, to jump from the highest platform with only a vine wrapped around their ankles to catch their fall. In some videos, you can hear the land diver scrape the ground. That's how close they come. The 69-year-old chief has performed the ritual himself many times. He invites people from around the world to watch these land diving ceremonies, which they call it Nagal. And I could be mispronouncing it, I apologize, Nagol. But that's from his home on the southern tip of Pentecost Island. He was saddened, though, when he found out that what for them is very serious cultural expression has become bungee jumping, which is kind of a lighthearted, goofy sport around the world that he says was stolen from his people and his culture. Mr. Fargo said, we were shocked because they told us they made a lot of money out of that. I would like to send a message to all the people who use the bungee jump that it was taken from the Pentecost Regional Land Dive. So Mr. Fargo says he and other indigenous chiefs from Vanuatu have called for compensation from bungee jump operators to be funneled into their communities, but they're pessimistic about actually receiving royalties. Mr. Fargo said, I think if they pay a small amount of money to us on the island, it'd be better. The issue now has been inscribed into Vanuatu's own laws with a bill to protect Vanuatu's traditional knowledge. And they passed that law. But of course, the cat's out of the bag, so it's kind of hard to say what they could do at this point. But the bill explicitly mentions these jumps from South Pentecost and its resemblance to bungee jumping. The enactment of such legislation will ensure the proper monitoring and regulation of Vanuatu's traditional knowledge and expressions of culture for commercial use, and to ensure that the traditional owners have given their prior informed consent, the bill states. An example being the bungee jump, which gets a resemblance of Nagal jump of South Pentecost. A person who uses that traditional knowledge without the prior informed consent of the traditional owners commits an offense under this act. So, technically speaking, if you make money off bungee jumping someplace else, you might be breaking a law in Vanuatu. I just don't know if they can get you extradited for that. I'm joking. The people of Pentecost Island have practiced land diving for centuries as a way to celebrate the season's yam harvest. The elaborate ceremony includes traditional dancing and outfits, including women wearing grass skirts. According to some reports, the ritual grew out of a legend involving a woman running away from her marriage. Fleeing into the jungle, chased by her husband, she climbed a tree, tied a vine to her ankle, and jumped and managed to land safely. Her husband, who didn't quite take the same care with tying the vine as she did, fell to his death. But Chief Fargo said the ritual now symbolizes initiation for young men and boys, a rite of passage to prove their strength, and I would suspect their bravery. Okay? I don't care how strong you are. jumping off that platform takes guts. Okay, so, but maybe when he says strength, he also means just fortitude and so on. For decades now, this 3-month-long event has drawn in numerous tourists who pay $150 each to watch the young men hurtle towards the ground. Queen Elizabeth II even watched this back in 1974, and believe it or not, while she was there, one of the land divers actually died due to some issues with the vines and their elasticity. I'm not making that up. In 1979, Vanuatu inspired Oxford University's Dangerous Sports Club, who decided to recreate this over the Clifton Suspension Bridge in the UK. Now, the commercialization of bungee jumping can be traced to a guy named A.J. Hackett from New Zealand. He took the idea and he founded a company called A.J. Hackett Bungee in 1988. And this kind of lines up in my mind when I remember seeing bungee jumping appearing for the first time at like county fairs and so on. I believe it also is featured in the movie To Live and Die in L.A. in the opening scene, but I could be wrong on that. But I don't think I am. Mr. Hackett had pioneered an elastic bungee jumping cord in the mid-1980s, and he shot to global notoriety after bungee jumping off of the Eiffel Tower in 1987. He was arrested but released after 5 minutes, according to the company's website. When asked what he thought about the indigenous groups calling for recognition, they said they had no one available for comment. But the company acknowledges on their website that bungee jumping's origins do in fact hail from Vanuatu, which is just a fun name to say, Vanuatu. John Hurry from Vanuatu's Intellectual Property Office helped draft the bill, and he thinks the legislation will not retrospectively help people like Chief Fargo gain royalties from bungee jumpers. He says, however, it could help prevent future exploitation of Vanuatu's traditional customs. And, that's the thing. He says, we've come up with this bill so we can put in place mechanisms where any future case like this will be handled. And they point out there's a growing push from indigenous groups worldwide for better regulation of the use of traditional knowledge to ensure indigenous communities are respected by companies that seek to use their cultural knowledge. So in Australia, there have been calls for legislation to stamp out fake indigenous art appropriating Aboriginal culture, while controversy continues to swirl about the copyright of the Aboriginal flag after a non-indigenous company secured exclusive clothing rights to the flag. So there's, a lot of controversy there. But again, the idea that you build a tower and jump off it with something tied to your feet so you don't smash into the ground and die. Obviously, these guys invented it, right? I mean, it doesn't appear to be much question about that. But when you invent something that other people see and go, hey, that's cool, if it's not an invention, like a thing, like a gadget or a tool or a device, it's just a thing people do. It's very, very hard to protect that as far as intellectual property goes. And we've had discussions previously, and there are obviously frameworks within which to protect things like writings, right? Copyright. Protect music, likewise with copyright. Protect inventions like patents and so on. And there's always this issue where somebody comes up with an idea that cannot be properly protected simply because it's not one of those things, right? So, interestingly, the guy who invented the stretchy cord that you attach from your ankle to the platform could have invented and patented that if, in fact, that was a unique invention. And if the person had thought of doing that, I don't know. It'd be an interesting thing to go back and look at, see if anybody actually, patented things with respect to bungee jumping. But I can tell you that I remember in the early days of this when it started popping up at places like county fairs, because somebody realized that all you got to do is get one of those scissor lifts and you just attach a bungee thing to it and and you just hope that you did the math right. And I seem to recall that there was a county fair in Michigan in the late 80s or early 90s where somebody did that and got killed. And very quickly you saw bungee jumping disappearing from county fairs. I'm not laughing that somebody died. I'm laughing because it was such an idiotic thing to think of. To go, oh, I'm just going to set up this ramshackle thing and let probably drunken people jump off of it for $20. And how many people have to jump and pay you so that you can pay for the one person who something bad happens and they hit the ground? So yeah, that's why you don't see this at county fairs anymore, but you do see it from time to time. And I know there are places that operate these, and it's often usually some places there's a big bridge with several hundred feet below it, and then they do the bungee so it takes you down about 150 feet, and there's like 100 feet of clearance at the bottom if they're doing it right. And even then, I suspect they have you sign a whole stack of waivers, and even then. If somebody gets hurt, I suspect that company just pulls the plug and runs before they actually pay off any claims. So there you go. But our hats are off, figuratively speaking. And I do respect the people of Vanuatu who invented this. And I would like to also salute Chief Luke Fargo, who's calling attention to it. Because, it's swept the world on some levels. Everyone knows about it. And we should respect the people who invented it. Whether they have the right to charge us money for it, it's a tough call. But again, there is a law in Vanuatu about it. So check that out. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What you say about his company is what you say about society.